Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. So in my previous video I criticized Pearl because of her lack of morality and her lack of experience when it comes to the topic she talks about. In this specific video that I was criticizing, she argued that in the name of equality, men should be allowed to walk away from their responsibility of fatherhood without any consequences because women can do the same thing by getting an abortion without any consequences.
Now, the point of this interview was I wanted to see if people believed in equal rights for men. I mean, come on, y'all. If women have the right not to be mothers, then shouldn't men have the right not to be fathers?
So let me break down the video because I went ahead and fact check her statistic, but I also rewatched the video in its entirety to see if her argument makes sense. Spoiler alert, it doesn't. Now, I might sound a bit frustrated, a bit angry, a bit more serious in this video, and I truly am, because while making this video, the things that I found out and how she was being disingenuous, not only that made me angry, and it made me in a way very disappointed because I used to be part of this community, but I'm much more disappointed and much more frustrated at the grown men who support her. And I think that's where a lot of my frustration actually comes from. Understand that there are younger men and younger women watching, but more importantly, they are very much affected by what we do.
What did you say? Fuck the woman, fuck the woman.
What? No, wait. We love women. We love women. We love women.
But not like transgenders.
Yes, sir. We love everybody. We love everybody. No.
All gays die.
Whoa, kid!
And that's the very uncomfortable truth that a lot of people, I think, either don't know or refuse to acknowledge. Because once you do acknowledge that, then you have a lot of responsibilities. So please do your best to be the change that you want to see. And thank you to you guys who supported me because you understood my point and you guys actually give me hope. But let's go back to the video. So the first strong argument during this video is this.
No, so what we're talking about, so if I want to get an abortion in the UK, right, I can get an abortion up to 6 months. But if a man says, I don't want to be a father, he's still on the hook for child support. And depending on how many kids there are, it's between 13 and 20%. So that incentivizes women to get kids off of rich guys. For example, in the US, the NBA players had a statement being issued out that to flush their condoms because girls were stealing them.
And yes, I can agree that there are terrible women who will do that, but that's a faulty generalization. It's also the exception to the rule because this specific situation mostly happened to sexually irresponsible wealthy men. I mean, just listen to how specific this is. Sexually irresponsible wealthy men. Why is she purposely ignoring the responsibility of men to make this point? I think you and I can take an educated guess because it's fairly obvious, which is the reason why she never mentions the stat. And this is actually going to be reoccurring as we go through this video. So what's the real statistic on that then? How many women have been incentivized to get money from rich men? First off, there's no specific statistic to support a claim at all. It doesn't exist, and if anyone does find it, please send me the link. I would love to go over it. And there's no statistic to support a claim because it's the exception to the rule, something that Pearl herself always dismisses when someone brings up. Because I've watched her always say, well, we don't talk about the exception to the rule. We talk about the rule.
Because oftentimes people bring up the exception when I'm talking about the rule. And, you know, I know there's exceptions, there's the chubby chasers, but that doesn't make it the rule. And so it's like, it's really hard to have conversations with women without them bringing up the exception to the rule.
And to me, it seems like, well, if you're going to apply that logic to other people, you should apply that logic to yourself. So in this specific case, personally, I think that the exception to the rule is not a strong enough argument to give men the right to walk away from their responsibilities, because that's the reason why she's bringing up this argument. That being said, I did a bit of digging and this is what I was able to find. In 2017, custodial parents with legal order or informal agreement for child support were supposed to receive on average $5,519, approximately $460 per month. And here's another research with almost the same number. Here we can see that in Finland, for example, the median child support payment is about $2,652 a year, by the way. And in the UK, it's about $4,081. In the US, which is one of the highest one, it's about $5,000. Then she goes ahead and she says this.
But if a man says, I don't want to be a father, he's still on the hook for child support. And depending on how many kids there are, it's between 13 and 20%.
And I don't know what she means by that. Maybe what she meant is it's about 13 to 20% of the father's income. And since she doesn't provide any of her sources, then let's go with that. When it comes to child support, the biggest issue men face is the lack of education and self-control. We can argue that the court has its issue too. I would agree with you. But the idea of treating men like children who are not responsible for their own action is something that I would never agree with. But another issue is that sometimes when people talk about child support, they are often not educated on the matter. They don't know why it was put in place. They don't know how it's calculated. And they don't even know if it has any benefit. Sure, child support should be revisited. And I'm glad this woman mentioned something that I think Pearl is incapable of understanding.
I mean, it is up to the father, but at the end of the day, like, the child's life, if the child's brought into the world, like, your child's life kind of matters, and whether your child's going to be a happy child or not, or disrupted child, that's kind of up to whether you have one kind of parental figure in their life or two.
And sometimes I think to myself, how is this not part of the conversation? It's baffling to me that it is actually not something that's mentioned often. And some people might think, well, Christian, Pearl is just making a point. You don't understand it. But does the mean justify the action? Because if you can excuse this, then you will have to excuse the way feminists constantly dump on men to make a point. You will have to excuse the way feminists never care about how their action affect children. To me, it's the same morally bankrupt tactics. Anyway, later on she says this, and I actually laughed at it.
I'm not saying he shouldn't be in their life. I'm just saying in the name of equality, it should be even. So, like, he shouldn't owe child support, but I think we agree that.
So how do you even make it even when the woman is the one shouldering the majority of the risk when it comes to pregnancy? See, that's the real question. I'm not saying men shouldn't have a say, but I think this argument is unfair because of the fact that Pearl refuses to acknowledge the risks and responsibilities that women have to take on, but she also refused to acknowledge that men are also responsible for their own actions. It's almost like she's pandering. Now she brings up this issue.
The guy can go to jail for not paying child support.
What, in the UK?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know much about
They can seize your assets.
The number of irresponsible men who go to jail is not a strong enough argument. And this is where I started to notice how lazy and disingenuous Pearl is, because she never mentioned a source. It could be as simple as putting on a screen, just the way I'm doing it in this video. This is what I was able to find out when I looked into it. About 14% of fathers are jailed for missing child support payments. And my personal thought on this is simple. If the average child support payment is about 400 and something, you should be able to pay for that, or you should stay to yourself. In this specific case, it's hard for me to support the man if he's being jailed for not paying child support when I know that it's a grown man. It's a man that could have not slept with a woman. It's a man that could have not gotten a woman pregnant. And you could think that 14% is a significant amount of men getting jailed. But keep in mind, you could have avoided this issue by being more responsible. This next part of the video doesn't add much to the conversation, but I wanted to share my thought about it.
Do you think it's better if people are married before they have kids? Oh.
I said it doesn't add much to the conversation because whether you're married or not, people put each other on child support. But I wanted to say that personally, I think people should get married before they have a child or start a family. That's something that I would do. That's something that I would encourage people in my life to do. Now, you could argue that divorce is going to ruin your life or whatever, but it's like, why do you even go into the fight already defeated? That's just a weird mentality. Have some confidence in yourself and the people that you choose to associate with. Anyway, that's that. I just wanted to share my thoughts on this. So back to Pearlyn. This is something else she said that I had to fact check, because not only did she not provide any sources, but what she said afterward made me scratch my head a little bit.
I'm saying it's being used as a form of contraception. Like, rather than, like, when a lot of people think like it should be a last case resort. And right now we're seeing it being used as a form of contraception. And you can see that because 40% of women keep getting them over and over again. And that doesn't include women that have them in the future.
Listen, abortion, my personal opinion, it's terrible. And I know some of you guys may disagree. You might think I'm pro-life. I guess I am. A lot of the time for me, it's about the context, it's about the nuances. I think unless it's necessary to save the mother's life, abortion it shouldn't be done. Now, as for rape, I think it should be up to the victim to decide. It should be up to the woman to decide, as long that is done early. That being said, Pearl was right about this statistic. About 40% of women have more than one abortion. The issue here is that she's either not sharing everything or she's not educated on the matter. When she was asked to elaborate on her point, this is what she had to say.
It doesn't make sense that women are just using it because legal and free, so just using it, why not? So it's hard to believe that it's as simplistic as you're putting it, that just using it as contraception. There must be something more to it, a reason why they're not aborting or using the morning after pill straight away, or what's happening, what's changing. But It's probably a bit more complex than.
I mean, I can't tell you why. I'm just telling you what the data says, right? So I don't know why they're not using contraception.
And it doesn't surprise me that she doesn't know. It's almost like she's not educated enough to speak on the matter. So I went ahead and did a bit more research. I pretty much did the work for her. And this is what I found. This is from the Gut Matcher Institute, and I quote, "The majority of women having their second or even the third abortion were using contraceptive during the time period which they became pregnant. In fact, women having a repeat abortion are slightly more likely to have been using a highly effective hormonal method." This finding refutes the notion that a large number of women are relying on abortion as their primary method of birth control. Rather, it suggests that women having abortion, especially those having one or more abortions, are trying hard to avoid an intended pregnancy, but they're having trouble doing so. But I didn't stop there. I wanted to find out a little bit more. So I went ahead and looked around a little bit more, and this is what I found from the National Library of Medicine. And I quote, "Only a small portion of abortion patients, about 10%, reported that they had never used contraception. And in this multivariable model, these women were less likely to report that they had prior abortion." And this proved that it's not as simple and as easy as Pearl wants it to be.
So it's hard to believe that it's as simplistic as you're putting it, that just using it as contraception. There must be something more to it.
And this is the reason why context and nuance matters. All the research and the editing that I've done to make this video, it really took some time. It really took some effort. But I did it. So why isn't a big YouTuber not able to do the same thing? At the end of the day, men and women have the issues. We can agree. Listen, I've had a couple of exes too. But when someone comes in and uses our frustration towards each other to radicalize us, we need to stand against them. And to me, it's just simple. You have to be the change that you want to see. And for the trolls out there, if you don't want to see any change, then yeah, sure, don't do anything. Or maybe if the change you want to see is a negative change, then do that. I know there's some trolls out there. I kind of love you guys though, because you make me laugh. So I gotta give you a shout out. In the end, even though her idea was to make people think about the inequality when it comes to abortion, child support, pregnancy, and all these things, I think her way of doing it, her approach to the conversation was extremely sloppy. Do you remember how feminists disregarded the effort and sacrifices of men in the name of equality? It's the same way Pearl is disregarding the effort and sacrifices of women in the name of equality. Allow me to explain. To have a conversation about abortion, child support, and pregnancy without acknowledging that women have to deal with a majority of the risk and responsibility is disingenuous, but it's also intellectual incompetence. Now, if you want more information about these stats, I will make a lot more videos on the Patreon. I'm not going to put them on YouTube because most people don't really care about that on YouTube. But if you're somebody who actually wants to learn about these things, you want to inform yourself, I will do my best to do a lot more research and put them on Patreon. You can go there if you want to support us as well. And I'll be adding a lot more things there. It takes a lot of effort for one person to make these videos, a lot of research, a lot of editing, a lot of fact checking, and even going back to fact check my own fact check. But at the end of the day, if I'm honest, this is fun. It's exhausting, but it's fun. And I hope that at least, if anything, I was able to add some value to your life. I was able to give you some sort of value. With all of that being said, please take care of yourself.